check out the top 30 moments of Raw, considering the 30th anniversary of Raw is going to take place today or tonight around 8 o'clock. So let's get into it.
From shocking returns to heartbreaking retirements to a real-life heart attack, these are the top 30 OMG moments in Monday Night Raw history. Number 30 is an important reminder of why you shouldn't play with fire. During the Thunderdome era of WWE, Evolution teammates Triple H and Randy Orton battled in the main event of the show. After brawling back and forth, the Game grabbed his trademark sledgehammer, but suddenly, all of the screens in the arena began to shut off, and Triple H's weapon instantaneously started on fire. The rest of the lights shut off, and when they came back on, the Game was nowhere to be seen. Instead, Alexa Bliss is in the ring and stared Orton down. Before the Viper could make sense of the situation, Bliss suddenly put her hand by her face and blasted him with a fireball. Randy immediately fell to the mat and rolled around in agony. While this moment was filmed before Raw went on the air, the fireball is still one of the most violent and disturbing endings to any episode of Raw. If you thought that was unsettling though, then wait until you see number 29. In his Raw debut, Vader easily destroyed his opponent, Savio Vega, but he wasn't done just yet.
Damn.
Vader delivered a second Vader bomb to the veteran and then headbutted a referee and powerbombed another one. Vader was so out of control that interim WWE president Gorilla Monsoon had to confront him. Monsoon was disgusted by Vader's actions and decided to suspend him indefinitely. The monster did not take it well and slapped the president. In turn, Monsoon fought back and attacked with a series of chops, but the Hall of Famer made a fatal mistake by taking his eyes off the monster. Vader delivered a splash, an elbow drop, and a final devastating Vader bomb on the retired wrestler. Fans were stunned, and what made this moment so shocking was that Monsoon, while a former wrestler, had been known to newer fans as a beloved and fun announcer. So the attack on the legendary figure was one of the most unsettling moments seen in WWE at that point. This next one, though, is easily the most painful WWE moment, if you're a man at least. Shane McMahon has done a lot of crazy things over the course of his career.
Yes,
He's
he has.
heights and taken some brutal punishment. He's a man with little fear, so when Kane attacked his mother, Linda, Shane had no problem trying to get revenge on his own. But maybe he should have been a bit more cautious. On the September 1st, 2000.
I remember this vividly, 2003 episode of Raw. Kane went rogue on Shane McMahon.
Episode of Raw, Shane McMahon was told all night that something bad would happen to him. Shane didn't listen and headed out to the ring. Raw general manager Eric Bischoff first came out to confront him, but the lights suddenly went out and the Big Red Machine attacked McMahon from behind. Kane handcuffed Shane and then reached under the ring and tossed water on McMahon's helpless body. Then, in one of the most strangest attacks in WWE history, the Devil's favorite demon attached jumper cables to Shane's goods and the other to a car battery. Sparks started flying as McMahon screamed in pain.
I could not even imagine the pain. Oh my god, you couldn't pay me enough to do that.
Thankfully, Rob Van Dam saved the day, and perhaps the future children of Shane. But for that moment, Shane O'Mac was the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. In 2001, WCW went out of business, and WWE purchased the company. They brought in a number of WCW wrestlers, but there's a few notable names missing. One of them was Goldberg, and there was no sight of him. Until 2003. In the final segment of Raw, Rock was basking in the glow of his victory against Steve Austin from the night prior at WrestleMania. But then, some familiar music hit.
Rock will tell you this right.
It was surreal finally seeing Goldberg appear in a WWE ring. Unfortunately for The Rock, the show ended with him on his back after taking a devastating spear from the former WCW heavyweight champion. It may have happened later than fans expected, but Goldberg showing up on Raw was still one of the craziest debuts ever seen. This next moment was even crazier though. In late 1999, fans were supposed to see a beautiful moment of Test and Stephanie McMahon getting married. But if you've ever seen a wedding in WWE, you know they never end well.
Never.
However, fans were not prepared for just how shocking things would play out. As Test was about to say, "I do," he was interrupted by Triple H's music. The Game came out and made a pretty uncomfortable scene for everyone. He showed a video of himself driving through Las Vegas and pulling up to a drive-through wedding. Then, it was revealed that an unconscious Stephanie McMahon was in the passenger seat. Triple H mimicked her voice to say "I do," and an
I do.
union was formed. Not only did this moment kick off some major storylines, but it may still be the most over-the-top and memorable WWE wedding ever. This next moment was memorable as well, but for an entirely different reason. Ever since WWE started, it's been a staple to have small, no-name guys take on much bigger name talent. These small guys get little to no offense in, and of course, never win.
Oh.
Or almost never win. The same year Raw went on the air, Razor Ramon faced The Kid. The Kid had appeared on TV twice before this and was beaten in under 3 minutes in both incidents. This match with Razor looked to be the same, but no one could expect what actually happened. Do you know what I didn't expect though? How nutritious and delicious Factor's meals are, the sponsor of this video. Microwave, and it's ready to eat in 2 minutes. Which is great, since it gives me more. The Kid capitalized and hit a moonsault to score the 3 count and the victory.
1, 2,
It was
3.
one of the biggest upsets in WWE history and helped launch the Kid's career, who later became known as X-Pac.
X-Pac.
Now, if the Kid
Yeah.
had fought this next wrestler, then it would be a much different story. On March 14th, 2004, Brock Lesnar left WWE after only about 2 years in the company. After leaving, the former WWE champion became even more popular as he conquered UFC and became one of the most famous sports stars on the planet. Meanwhile, John Cena had taken over for Brock as the face of WWE, but at WrestleMania 28 in 2012, Cena took a rare loss to The Rock. On Raw the following night, Cena came out to apologize to the fans for letting them down and called out the Great One to congratulate him. But Rock was nowhere to be seen. Instead, some familiar music played through the arena. The crowd went crazy, and the commentators were at a loss for words. Brock entered the ring and teased a handshake with Cena, but lured him in to a devastating F5. With that one statement, it was one of the biggest and most shocking returns in the history of WWE. The next moment is also shocking, but probably not for the reason you think. By the end of 1998, the war between The Undertaker and Steve Austin was getting out of control. At one point, Taker
Yeah, I remember this. He tried to embalm Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was one of the greatest moments ever on Raw.
tried to actually kill the Texas rattlesnake by embalming him, but an even bigger spectacle happened soon after. After a main event match on Raw featuring The Rock and The Undertaker versus Austin and Mankind, Taker knocked out Stone Cold with the ring bell. The dead man then carried Austin up to the entryway where he was greeted by druids. Undertaker ordered them to tie Stone Cold to a large symbol, which clearly was a cross. As the symbol rose, creepy chanting music began to play, and The Undertaker had basically crucified Austin. Even though WWE downplayed the religious symbolism, it's still one of the most shocking images ever seen on Raw. This next moment, though, was so good that everybody thought it was real. By 2013, Mark Henry had enjoyed a long and successful run in WWE. However, if you watched Henry's Bell to Bell video, you know he dealt with a lot of injuries. Because of this, it looked like Mark was gonna retire. On Raw, Mark Henry came walking out and looked emotional. He joined John Cena, and the World's Strongest Man thanked the fans for supporting him over the years. As tears filled his eyes, he announced he was retiring from WWE. Both the fans and Cena were cheering and congratulating Henry. It was an emotional moment. But then, Mark suddenly laid out the WWE champion with the World's Strongest Slam. The retirement turned out to be fake, and Mark Henry still had a lot left. Oftentimes, WWE moments are ruined because the fans know what's going to happen, but everyone bought into
He says somebody gonna get their ass kicked.
this retirement. Fans also didn't see this next moment coming either. Once they became partners in 2016, Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens turned into the best of friends. Or so we thought. For months, the two charismatic Canadians were inseparable. They tagged together, interfered in each other's matches, and created some hilarious moments. In February 2017, Jericho
just made the
released a
list.
sexual friendship in honor of his best friend, Kevin Owens. Jericho showered KO with presents and appreciation. Owens returned the favor by giving Y2J a gift, a new list. The list of KO. Kevin Owens then attacked Chris Jericho and threw him into a TV, shattering the screen. It was so sad to see a great pair of friends become enemies like this, but it made for a great OMG moment. Number 20 was also pretty good, and you'll see why. At SummerSlam 1997, Stone Cold was nearly paralyzed in a botched piledriver by Owen Hart. Because of his injury, Austin was not medically cleared to compete. Stone Cold became frustrated and started attacking members of the WWE roster. Finally, Vince McMahon had enough. Austin faced arrest when McMahon pleaded for the Texas Rattlesnake to stop. Steve Austin eventually appeared to agree with his boss, but just like a snake, he struck quickly. Stone Cold showed his true feelings when he kicked McMahon in the stomach and hit him with a stunner. The crowd
famous
absolutely
stunner.
exploded.
I love
was
it.
the first of many McMahon stunners to come, but seeing it for the first time was something special. 5 years later, Vince McMahon was part of a moment that fans never thought would actually happen. It was no secret that Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon did not like each other. The two tried to run the other out of business during the Monday Night Wars and took some pretty hard shots against each other. However, McMahon and WWE ended up winning, and Bischoff and WCW were done. Considering the bad blood, it was reasonable to assume that Eric Bischoff would never go working for the enemy. Then, this happened on Raw in 2002. Things became even more shocking when Vince McMahon not only announced his former rival as the new GM of Raw, but also embraced Bischoff with a big hug. After all the shots each
can't
side took during the
believe
Monday
that.
Night Wars, it felt like hell had frozen over seeing this image. On the other hand, this next moment was just pure awesome. The Raw after WrestleMania is often one of the best, if not the best episode of the year. Many big things can happen, like what happened the night after WrestleMania 29 in 2013. The World Heavyweight Champion, Alberto Del Rio, was having a rematch against Jack Swagger. Del Rio won, but injured his leg during the fight. While Alberto was recovering, this happened.
Del Rio, but he's hurt.
Dolph Ziggler decided it was time to cash in, and so he did. For a brief moment, it looked like the show-off would come up short after getting caught in the cross arm breaker, but he fought his way out and then connected with the zigzag for the 3 count. The crowd became unglued, and this easily goes down as one of the best title changes to ever happen on Raw. 2 years before this, though, the fans were experiencing a much different emotion. On April 3rd, 2011, Edge successfully defended the World Heavyweight Championship against, ironically, Alberto Del Rio. Then, 8 days later, he would say this.
That I have to retire.
After almost 14 years in WWE, Edge's career was over. The announcement made the Rated R superstar choke up a bit, but he still talked about his career and how his dream was always to become a wrestler. Edge was in such good spirits during this that it made you wonder if it was part of a storyline, but he meant everything he said. Of course, this wasn't the end. Nearly 9 years later, the Ultimate Opportunist returned to the ring, but this moment was still shocking and heartbreaking to watch. Number 16, though, was the complete opposite. The final Raw before WrestleMania 15 kicked off with the Corporation in the ring, but they were soon interrupted by the sound of breaking glass. Austin drove to the ring in a food truck and then got on the mic and started tearing into The Rock. Before the Great One could fire back, he was washed out by Austin showering him with beer. Vince and Shane McMahon also got drenched and stumbled around in the ring. This segment was pure fun and a classic WWE moment. Another iconic moment in Raw's history involved another wrestling company. Are you ready? Well, WCW sure wasn't. In the middle of the Monday Night Wars, Triple H and D-Generation X decided to take the battle right to WCW and invaded Monday Night Nitro. The game trash-talked WWE's rival and even got some WCW fans to switch sides.
But do you think WCW sucks?
Of course.
At one point, DX tried to drive into the arena, but they were shut out, missing out on what could have been the most unreal moment in wrestling history. Still, the segment was 5 minutes straight of WWE tearing apart their competition, and it was cool to see WWE fight their rivals so directly. The next OMG moment was anything but cool. In fact, it was hot. Poor Jim Ross. Even though he's a commentator, JR has been made fun of and beaten up. But on one unfortunate episode of Raw, he was also set on fire. Good old JR was given the unenviable task of having to interview Kane, who had recently been unmasked. The Devil's Horrible wanted others to experience his pain, and JR became his target. Kane punched the beloved announcer and knocked him to the floor. Then, the Bigger Machine poured gasoline on the WWE commentator and set him on fire. While it was a bit cheesy, this was still shocking, since you don't see something like this very often in WWE. You don't see moments like number 13 often either, but it's awesome when it does happen. On the June 7th, 1999 episode of Raw, Big Show and The Undertaker battled for the WWE title. The two giants spent most of the match brawling on the outside, but once they got back inside the ring, things got interesting. Show caught Taker by the throat and lifted him into the air for the chokeslam. However, instead of landing on the ring, the dead man went straight through it. It was an unexpected moment that got a huge reaction from the crowd. The hellacious chokeslam was one of Big Show's biggest moments and an all-time OMG moment for Raw. Be prepared to cry though, because this next moment is a real tearjerker. From November 2012 to June 2014, The Shield were three of the most popular wrestlers in WWE. Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns were primed to become legends, and almost every week they were putting on exciting matches. At the 2014 Payback pay-per-view, The Shield defeated one of the greatest factions of all time, Evolution. It seemed like their rivalry was going to continue, but the next night, Batista quit WWE, and Triple H had to resort to Plan B. Inside the ring, Rollins first laid out Roman with a chair shot to the back. The look on Dean Ambrose's face said it all. Rollins then attacked him too, and allowed Randy Orton to continue the assault on his former teammates. It seemed like the Shield still had months, if not years left together, which is why this moment was a real surprise. While it was sad, this next moment was the complete opposite. Tony Schiavone infamously said on WCW Nitro,
Mick Foley, who wrestled here one time as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title. I'm going to put some butts in the seat.
and he was kind of right. After trying and failing to win the WWE Championship multiple times, Mankind, aka Mick Foley, got one final shot against the champion, The Rock, on the first Raw of 1999. It was a no DQ match which saw a giant brawl break out. Thanks to help from Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mankind was able to defeat The Rock and finally become champion. What made it so special was that Mick Foley didn't fit the mold of what a WWE World Champion usually looked like, but through hard work and determination, Foley accomplished the unthinkable and shocked the wrestling world, and delivered one of the best Raw moments ever. Someone else who has constantly shocked the world, for good and bad reasons, is Jeff Hardy. You can't have a list of OMG moments and not include the charismatic Enigma.
Yeah.
On Raw in 2008, Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy faced off in the main event of the show. The match was over pretty quickly.
I remember this vividly. Jeff Hardy went to the top of the Titantron, and jumped off of it. Crazy moment.
Though, when Orton resorted to hitting a low blow and causing a disqualification. While this probably seemed like a huge letdown for fans, they were about to see something amazing. Jeff soon got back to his feet and started fighting the Apex Predator. The brawl resulted in Randy flipping off the stage and landing on the floor, but the fall wasn't enough for Hardy. Jeff scaled part of the Raw set and climbed until he was 30 feet above the ground. Then he did it. This is the definition of an OMG moment, and one of the most dangerous moves performed in Jeff's career. This next one, though, is probably the spiciest thing WWE has ever broadcast.
Spicy.
At New Year's Revolution, Edge cashed in his Money in the Bank contract, beat John Cena, and walked out with the world title. The next night on Raw, Edge wanted to celebrate with his girlfriend Lita, and he wanted the whole world to see it. A bed was set up in the middle of the ring. Edge and Lita began removing each other's clothes and started making out. Eventually, they got in the bed and, you know. Thankfully, Ric Flair and John Cena ended this moment, but it's amazing that WWE actually went through with it. The moment is kind of awkward, considering kids were watching on TV and live in the crowd. Edge and Lita's spicy times are a lot of things, and OMG is definitely one of them. While that moment got WWE in a bit of trouble, this next one nearly caused Raw to get kicked off TV. In late 1996, former tag team partners Brian Pillman and Steve Austin were engaged in a personal war. The battle resulted in the rattlesnake injuring Pillman's ankle, but that wasn't even the worst part. While recovering, Brian Pillman was doing a live interview from his home. Brian revealed he had a gun, but that didn't stop Stone Cold from invading Pillman's house. Then, this happened.
Don't go in there! Don't go in there!
Yeah. Fans were left wondering what happened to Austin. Of course, nothing did, but this moment received so much backlash that WWE had to publicly apologize for going overboard. It might not be a beloved moment, but it certainly earns an OMG. This next moment does as well. Bubba Ray Dudley was a bit of a deranged character. During the Attitude Era, he took pleasure in powerbombing women through tables, but one night on Raw, he clearly took things too far. As Devon was wrestling Mark Henry in the ring, Bubba went backstage to kidnap Mae Young.
Oh my God.
Where the Dudley Boys laid out Henry with a 3D. Then, things got a bit disturbing. The 77-year-old was wheeled back up the entrance ramp, where Bubba picked her up and powerbombed Mae Young right off the stage and through a table. Though Mae had been involved in physical storylines, putting her through a table was a whole other level. For how old Mae was when she performed this crazy stunt, it easily ranks near the top of Raw OMG moments, but so does number 6. In 1998, WWE was looking to make a big splash for WrestleMania 14. To hype up the event, they brought in the most controversial and biggest sports stars at the time, Iron Mike Tyson. Vince McMahon said there would be a special announcement regarding Tyson, but before he could say exactly what it was, Steve Austin interrupted. Stone Cold said he was sick of Tyson and declared himself the toughest SOB on the planet. Austin took things one step further by giving Iron Mike double middle fingers. All hell then broke loose. Tyson shoved Austin, and the two stars had to be separated by everyone else in the ring. McMahon was livid, the crowd exploded, and WWE created one of the best celebrity moments ever. Speaking of exploded, that's literally what happened in this next OMG moment. Vince McMahon has made a lot of enemies over the years, but in 2007, it appeared that someone on the roster wanted
Vince McMahon got into a limo and it exploded. What is wrong with this man?
to kill him. It was Vince McMahon Appreciation Night on Raw, but wrestlers and celebrities weren't giving the owner the glowing praise he was expecting. One by one, they talked about what an awful person he was. At the end of the night, Vince had enough and left the arena. Once he got outside, McMahon paused and looked around suspiciously, as if he knew something bad would happen. And it did. As soon as Vince closed the limo door, the vehicle exploded. It was a shocking moment, as it appeared the owner of WWE had just died. WWE has done a lot of crazy stunts, as we've seen, but this one is in a league of its own. This next bomb is more figurative, but was just as destructive. By the summer of 2011, many WWE fans had grown tired of John Cena always being in the spotlight. They want something and someone new, but WWE never gave it to them. Regardless, Cena was set to have a match with CM Punk. One night on Raw, CM Punk was given a live mic and said everything you aren't supposed to say in WWE.
There's one thing you're better at than I am, and that's kissing Vince McMahon's ass.
Punk basically broke character and blasted WWE for how poorly the company was run. He insulted not only Vince McMahon, but also Stephanie and Triple H. In an even more surprising moment, Punk openly talked about winning the WWE title and defending it in Ring of Honor and New Japan. This was all stuff you would never even think someone would say on WWE programming. Despite that, it instantly turned Punk into a megastar and is still discussed over a decade later. The pipe bomb promo was awesome. This next moment was truly horrifying. In 2012, we nearly saw Hall of Fame wrestler and announcer Jerry Lawler die on live TV. On the September 10th, 2012 edition of Raw, Lawler teamed up with Randy Orton to take on CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler. At one point during the match, Lawler took 10 elbow drops from Ziggler. While it was an excessive amount, it still looked like a typical wrestling move, but it may have had near fatal consequences. After the match was over, the King went right back to the announcer's table to do commentary. Later, in the middle of another tag team match, Jerry Lawler suddenly passed out. WWE staff rushed over to the announcer's table, and fans could only speculate as to what exactly was going on. Later on, Michael Cole explained what happened.
Jerry collapsed, and we understand now that Jerry is receiving medical attention as we speak. They are performing CPR, and again, this is not part of tonight's entertainment.
Thankfully, Jerry Lawler was okay and returned to commentary later that year, but his heart attack was a shocking scene and an unforgettable moment for anyone who watched. This next moment was part of the show, but is still an image that's hard to get out of your mind. On the Viewer's Choice episode of Raw in 2010, CM Punk and John Cena battled in the main event of the show, where they were interrupted by some unexpected visitors. Out of nowhere, the winner of Season 1 of NXT, Wade Barrett, started making his way to the ring, and soon, the 7 other NXT contestants appeared from the crowd. Then, they suddenly attacked.
They went rogue
and laid waste to everyone and everything in their path. Michael Cole fled, Jerry Lawler was beaten up, and Daniel Bryan choked out ring announcer Justin Roberts with his own necktie. The group then set their sights on John Cena and ripped him apart. Even the ring wasn't spared by their attack. This is one of those rare moments in wrestling where it's all part of the script, yet it feels unscripted. That's what makes this one of the most pure OMG moments ever. But there's one that's even bigger. For years, fans had been tuning into both Raw and Nitro, and often saw top stars from one company jump to the other. But on March 26, 2001, it was all over. Raw opened with Vince McMahon announcing that he was now the owner of World Championship Wrestling. That announcement
WCW.
changed the wrestling landscape forever. And keep in mind, social media didn't really exist, so a lot of fans didn't know about this until they tuned into Raw. Later in the evening, Vince McMahon came out to address the future of WCW. In the storyline, Shane McMahon revealed he actually bought WCW right under his father's nose. Sure, while the Invasion storyline that followed wasn't all that great, this was still an incredible moment. It was a turning point for WWE and all of wrestling, and that's why it's the biggest OMG moment in Monday Night Raw history. Do you know the real reason why WWE wrestlers shave their bodies? Well,
So those were the top 30 moments of Monday Night Raw. There's some good ones. Number one being Monday Nitro, Shane buying that from Vince. It had to be up there. This will probably drop. This video will probably drop around 12 today, so check it out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. More videos in the future.